Morning. Go ahead and turn on the microphone. Right button. There you go. Move it around. Get yourself comfortable. As long as you're talking, just make sure you're speaking into the microphone.
Okay.
Thank you. Go ahead and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you are about to provide is true and accurate?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Goodwin?
Ms. Moser, have you previously filed a direct and rebuttal testimony in this matter?
Yes, I have.
Do you have some items of clarification that you wish to provide at this time?
Yes.
First, let's look at your direct testimony, page 4. And starting at line 12. You talk about the incident in Satartia, Mississippi, if I probably didn't get that pronounced correctly.
Satartia, Mississippi?
Yes.
Yes. And I just wanted to point out that our ground is very similar to the accident that happened there in Satartia. They are proposing to put a 24-inch pipe in our ground that is in the floodplain. It's saturated. Our ground is saturated with rain for over 2 months, and that's how what happened in Satartia. The soil around the pipeline slid, and that's what we foresee will happen on our ground, and that also caused the pipe to break, the pipe weld. So I guess I looked at those items from that catastrophe, and it's very similar to our ground. So I want that for the record.
You are the auditor in Palo Alto County?
Yes, I am.
And as such, you get mailings to actually the county, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I want to draw your attention to your exhibit 21, the corrected exhibit number 21.
Yes, we met with Summit and asked that the pipeline be routed off of our ground or change the alignment. And they always told us that they couldn't because IUB sets these rules that you have to be within the corridor. And Palo Alto County is within the corridor. And that is the land on the south side of the river that is not, it is still in the floodplain, but it is not blue on the map. If you bring the floodplain map up again, I can point that out to you. But you know, we were told that it wasn't in the corridor, but it is, because I received notice for the county.
The county land is in the corridor.
Yes.
And that's on the south side?
That's the letter that proves that right there.
And the county land is on the south side of the Des Moines River?
Yes.
And are you aware of whether the county and other landowners in that area oppose the pipeline?
I don't believe the county opposes the pipeline. They oppose eminent domain. And we actually, the county supervisors were willing to meet with landowners in the floodplain and 2 of the representatives from Turnkey Logistics and tried to work through some of these things. And the one supervisor reached out to the other landowner on the south side of the river and said that he would be willing, you know, to sign an easement. So that's what the Board of Supervisors did to try to help our situation.
Okay. And if we would look at the last page of Exhibit 20 of your testimony, direct testimony. sorry, Exhibit 19, the last page.
So this is a copy of the minutes from the Board of Supervisors meeting that we attended. I recused myself of my duties as auditor and went to the Board of Supervisors with my husband to try to get a restriction in the floodplain for the carbon pipeline. Just because of the safety concerns that we had and the severe flooding that we have on our ground. And the Board of Supervisors, we asked for a restriction in the entire pipeline, or not the entire pipeline, the floodplain. But they did put a restriction on sections 24 and 25 of Nevada Township for the construction of pipelines.
And when you say sections 24 and 25, does that include, or is that the land that you and your husband own and he farms?
Yes, that's correct.
So what is the effect of the city, of the county restricting Summit Carbon from putting in liquid hazardous pipeline in those two sections?
What is the what?
The effect.
What is the effect? Well, the effect is to get it off of our ground because they know that we have the worst flooding. The county had to spend over $110,000 to fix that hole that you saw in the video. And so every time it floods on our ground, it tries to cut a new channel.
And when it cuts a channel, would that then cut the dirt closer to a pipeline if there were a pipeline there?
Oh, yes, definitely. Yep.
I would offer in the evidence the direct and rebuttal testimony of Carmen Moser and the exhibits 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21 into evidence.
Are there objections?
No objection, Your Honor.
The board will admit and give the weight due.
I have no further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Whippel. I think you're first.
Morning, Ms. Moser.
Morning.
So we looked a minute ago at minutes from the Board of Supervisors meeting, which indicated that Jamie Moser requested restrictions be placed on the floodplain. Was there an ordinance in place for the floodplain prior to the meeting minutes that we looked at a moment ago?
Yes. Palo Alto County updated their ordinance in 2021. That is also part of my direct testimony. It starts with exhibit number 12. So, yes, our floodplain ordinance has been in effect. It actually was in effect in, I believe, 1994, and it was updated in 2021.
And are we to conclude from the minutes that additional changes were made subsequent to 2021 to the floodplain district?
Can you say that again?
Were any changes made to the ordinance as a result of the meeting minutes we discussed, or is the 2021 ordinance still in place?
The 2021 ordinance is still in place.
And does the 2021 ordinance prohibit development in the floodplain?
I would say yes.
Has Summit applied to the county for a permit for development in the floodplain?
No, they have not.
Thank you. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor?
Thank you. You said it's a 24-inch pipe. Are you sure of that? Is that what they told you?
Well, I mean, first they told us 16, then it was 20, and I think the last time it was 24. But I don't know. I mean, until it's in the ground, I don't know.
Okay. Did they present you with an easement form?
Yes,
Did that have the size of the pipe in it?
I believe it did. I think it was 20-inch.
Okay. Then when did they tell you it might be 24?
The next time they came to meet with us.
How would you describe your experience with the Summit land agents?
Well, we've had 5 different land agents, and we have asked them to please contact our attorney because all the informational meetings that we went to, even the hearing that IUB held, they told us to have an attorney review your easement. So it was very frustrating. The first land agent that we had, he contacted us almost every holiday weekend, which was very frustrating. And we also had some personal things going on. So that, that was tough. The last 3 that we had, we just wanted them to talk to our attorney. I mean, there was no way we could sign an easement like that. An easement should be prepared by the landowner, not the person that's going to come onto your ground. And also, we already have an easement with Fisk, and we don't want another easement on our property.
You have an easement with whom?
We have a easement already with the other landowner that's in the corridor with us, the Fisk property.
So the neighbor has already signed an easement with Summit, is that what you mean?
No, I'm saying we have an easement, the landowner, us, the Mosers, have an easement with the Fisk so that they can cross our property.
I see, okay, thank you. I was a little bit confused there.
Yeah.
You said your ground is similar to that in Satarsha, Mississippi. Aside from the water issue, was there any other similarities that you're aware of?
Well, I feel that, the mudslides, I mean, that ground, it's rich, dark, black soil. And after it floods, my husband has quite a time to get to farm it again. I mean, it compacts itself almost by itself. That's how heavy of the soil it is. So, yeah, he will have a lot of problems if you had to try to farm over a pipeline.
Can you be more specific as to what those problems would be?
The compaction, fighting the water. Like Jamie stated, even on a dry year, he had to replant.
I think you said, maybe your husband did too, that you talked to the land agents about a reroute to the south.
Yes.
And that wasn't clear. Is that land owned by the county?
Yes.
I see. So what does the county do with it?
It's a park. It's kind of a recreational area. It's mostly just timber. There's a pit there, a small pit, and then there's a boat ramp.
And I wasn't clear. Has Summit talked to the county about whether the county would allow the pipeline on that property?
No, they have not.
They have not talked to the county, or the county hasn't approved it?
No, they have not talked to the county, even though we requested that several times.
Have they said why they haven't talked to the county?
They told us because they couldn't go outside the corridor.
And what do you understand the corridor to be?
The people that got notified of the informational meeting back 2 years ago that was held at the Iowa Lakes Community College in Emmitsburg.
Okay. And as the county auditor, how do you understand that this updated ordinance in 2021 would impact the location or the routing of the pipeline?
Well, all I can refer to is on page 17 of that ordinance is Exhibit 12 in my direct testimony, page 20 of 28. And it talks about pipeline, river, and stream crossings shall be buried in the stream bed and banks or otherwise sufficiently protected to prevent rupture due to channel degradation and meandering. And it's my understanding that they're going to try to bore underneath the river. But when our ground floods, how are they? They're not going to be able to get a pipeline in there, and they wouldn't be able to pay us enough crop damages for every time that our ground floods.
How often does your ground flood?
I would say 7 out of 10 years.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Thank you. Mr. Jorde?
Thank you. This easement between you and your neighbor, is it your testimony that you're concerned if Summit has yet another easement, that could interfere with your duties and obligations as to the easement you've granted to your neighbors?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. And that could potentially cause you economic loss or hardship or dispute with your neighbors if the Summit pipeline were to come on your property?
Yes.
How many hours do you think, ma'am, you and your family have spent outside of your role as the county auditor on this process?
Thousands. And I have spent, any time that I have spent on this has not been on county time. This has been after hours that I have had to deal with this as a personal matter.
And Summit hasn't offered any compensation or recompense for the time investment?
No.
And in terms of how you've been treated throughout this process, how would you generally describe that?
I would say that it's been very stressful, and I wouldn't say that it's been threatening, but it's definitely been pushy. Jamie and I are contract buyers, and Jamie's mother, is the deed holder. And from the very beginning, back in August of 2021, they had our names and addresses mixed up, and they've never corrected it. And then also the fact that Mary received a letter. Of course, it came to our address because they've had it wrong the whole time. Is my mic working? Okay. But she got a letter for a parcel in Kasuth County with the meeting date and time for that meeting, way back when they had the informational meetings. So, we just feel like there's been so many errors and mistakes and not courtesy to us, that how can we trust them to put a pipeline in our ground? And like I've heard from many other testimonies, the risk is too big for us.
And on the risk question, is it true that Summit hasn't provided you the risk and hazard distances and educated you on how dangerous their pipeline is?
That's correct. We don't have any of that information.
Okay. Thank you. I don't have anything further.
Thank you. Ms. High?
Is there anything else you'd want the board to know as it relates to your land?
I just can't stress enough the flooding. If you could watch that 10-second video over and over, I would love for you to do that. My husband works very hard to farm this ground. It's 3rd generational, hope to be 4th generational, and that's his choice that he goes through the stress to farm that ground on river bottom. But to have someone want to put a pipeline through there and cause us more stress is something that we definitely do not want. And we do not feel that the IUB board should grant eminent domain for our parcel. And I just really hope that you take our testimony into consideration.
Thank you, Carmen.
Welcome.
Thank you. Mr. Goodwin, redirect. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Colas, sorry.
Hi, Jean Colas with Colas Family Farms. I had a couple of questions. I don't understand exactly the route, but there is a pipeline on your land after it goes through the riverbed, correct?
They will have to cross the river. Well, it depends. Are we going east or west? I mean, if we're heading west, they're going to go through our ground and then they're going to cross the river. So either way, yes.
Okay. And because of the flooding, you're very concerned about reclamation of that land to get it back to where it's able to yield crops because of the compaction?
Yes. Yeah, it's very heavy, dark soil. You know, Jamie has concerns about what's going to happen if it washes away the dirt from the trench that was made by the pipeline. Where are we ever going to get that dirt back?
So you're looking toward continuous year after year yield deficiencies.
Yes.
And loss of income.
Yes, definitely.
No further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Burns.
Yep. Could staff please pull up the KMZ map? So just, we've talked a little bit about the parcel and whatnot here. I want for the record to be clear as to what we're talking about here. So you have the pointer?
I do.
Okay. So if you could point, you've talked about a parcel of land in which a landowner said that they would take the pipeline. Can you please point out what that parcel of land is?
Yep. So if they move the map up just a little bit. Yep. So that would be this land down through here.
So when you say down through here, directly, just for the record purposes. So
south of the river. Yep. That's correct.
So directly south of the Des Moines River.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then,
and if...
Oh, go ahead.
No, you finish.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, the floodplain map, I was going to try to go to my map of the floodplain. You can see that area is less shaded on the floodplain map. But just continue.
So is it possible for staff to zoom into a street view? All right. Does this look like your field?
Yes.
Okay. And just as a description, how would you describe this parcel? Does it have any steep inclines? Is it primarily flat?
It's very flat.
Okay, very flat.
Yeah.
Okay. If we could zoom back out one last time, please. And using the pointer and using words for the record, since they can't visually see in the record, can you use your pointer to point out to me where is the exact location of that washout on the road of the video?
So my best guess is somewhere in here. I don't know if it's right where the pipeline is going to cross, but the washout is on 510th Avenue, very close to where the proposed hazardous liquid pipeline is to go.
So then if we could zoom back out so we get the Des Moines River to the west. So the flooding occurs, and I'm assuming comes from the west side there.
Mm-hmm.
You said it wants to cut its own channel. Mm-hmm. If you were to use your pointer and just describe to us how this channel and where it comes back into the river at when it exits your field.
So comes up this way And then all of this water has to drain over to here. But it's the very last thing that ever drains, because we are taking all of the water from Minnesota that's coming down the Des Moines River, and then we take all the water from over here, which is the meandering Cylinder Creek, and comes here. And it, yes, keeps on going. So this entire area floods a lot.
So when you said that your husband has to repair flood damage, do you bring in dirt at that time as well or not? Or just redo it with
We
the
haven't
dirt?
had to until the 2019 flood. And all of that gravel, the county was very good to work with us. Jamie and his dad, that was before his dad passed, worked for many months to get that ground back to be farmable.
And where your parcel's at and the parcel that we discussed earlier that they would be open to taking the pipeline, is that, I mean, is it a flat plane all the way over to their parcel as well, or does it start to incline up there? Are they higher up than you, I guess, is the question.
No. Well,
do they flood? I guess I would ask that.
no, not as severely as us.
Okay.
So they are higher up.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Let's zoom out just a little bit. I believe a moment ago you said this area floods. You're speaking about the area on both sides of the red shaded area in between, I believe you said Cylinder Creek and Des Moines River. Mm-hmm. Okay. So
yes.
We just needed to put it in words.
Yes.
This area. All right.
That's correct.
Thank you. Mr. Goodwin?
While we're looking at this picture, Carmen, can you point out to us where the county land is? And I think it's Charlotte Fair's land that they indicate they don't have an objection to a pipeline.
Yeah, so it's right down here in this area. So this is the Maroney Park, it's called. But it's amazing how the water or the ground on the south side of the river is sandy. And so when it does flood, it's different than the black soil that we have on the north side, as far as the compaction and
I want to make sure, cross-exam, you were asked about whether the county land is in the corridor. And I think your testimony is that yes, it is.
yes, that's correct.
And again, why do you know that?
Because the county received the letter for that county parcel in 2021 at the time of the informational meetings that the IUB board held.
And the county received the letter because it was sent to you as the auditor.
Yes.
Okay, so that's how you have that knowledge.
Yes, that's correct.
You mentioned Fisk as owning some land that Jamie rents and farms. That's in the red area. Can you point that out for us?
Yep. The Moser parcel is this one right here. And then Fisk owned this one, which we are the tenant. This one. And this one.
Make sure. Ms. Moser, can you make sure you're using your words?
Oh, yes. Okay, this is the 40 closest to 510th Avenue, which is the northwest of the northwest. That's the Fisk property. The northeast of the northwest is owned by Mosers. And then we go into the next quarter, and the next 40. And I'm drawing a blank what quarter I'm in, but northeast quarter, the north half.
And for clarification of the record, is it Melvin Fisk the third, and actually Dorothy Ann Stimpson, who own those three other quarters that you pointed out that your husband farms?
Yes.
And for reference for the board, I would indicate that Melvin Fisk III and Dorothy Ann Stimpson made a filing with the board June 12th of this year, opposed to the pipeline and suggesting that it be relocated to the south of the Des Moines River, as we've been discussing. I have nothing further.
Thank you. Ms. Colas, your cards up just one. Okay, just double checking. Okay, thank you. I believe that's it. Thank you. Appreciate it. Mr. Representative Eisenhart, will you be your first witness, or will you be calling Mr. Clark first?
I can be first if your goal is to get one in before lunch. But I plan to go first.
Okay. We're planning to go to lunch in about 12 minutes. Is that it? Is that enough time? Or we don't want to rush you.
It's enough time for me. It depends how many unfriendly questions I have.
Mr. Taylor says on the record we're all friendly. We'll just go to lunch 10 minutes early and give you some extra time to prep.